Hey, thanks for watching today's episode. Fans of the show know that our sponsor for today is G Fuel. That's right, G Fuel. You all know G Fuel. You've been buying G Fuel. I know because they still have us here to be sponsored by them. They're great. You guys are great for buying it. In case you don't know, G Fuel is an energy supplement program that you can actually use and mix with water or milk or any kind of concoction that is a liquid of your choice with a fun flavor attached to it. Usually nowadays, a lot of the flavors are themed after video games, content creators, or comic book films. So if you want to try some out, you can head over to gfuel.com and use code Completionist to get 30% off your order this weekend only. Again, that's code Completionist on checkout at gfuel.com. Personally speaking, I have been really enjoying the Sonic Limited Edition Fruit Punch flavor that came out I think it came out last year. Really like fruit punch flavored flavors to come out of G Fuel. So if you're looking to change up the things that you enjoy from G Fuel, I highly recommend anything that says fruit punch or some kind of tropical vibe or theme. Once again, thank you to G Fuel for sponsoring the show and the channel. And as always, if you want to get those savings, use code Completionist on checkout. Enjoy the show. If you asked what is one of the hardest classic games out there, Ninja Gaiden for the NES undoubtedly is one of the first games that comes to my mind. Developed by Tecmo's Team Strong, Ninja Gaiden may have capitalized on the 1980s obsession with ninjas and martial arts films, but it had staying power beyond that pop culture craze thanks to the game's killer narrative and challenging gameplay, delivering on the brutal fight for your life that the original box art promised. But for me, Ninja Gaiden is also inextricably tied up with the sense of camaraderie and friendship because of when I played it and the master who joined me on that journey. Hey everyone, and welcome to an all-new episode of the Completionist New Game Plus, the show where I am recompleting the original 120 games I ever featured here on the channel. It's been 8 years since I first beat Ninja Gaiden on the NES, but going back into this one, I remembered it being surprisingly fun. It has a simple yet compelling narrative, a stellar soundtrack, a diverse arsenal of weapons to wield as you push through each stage, and oh, how could I forget? A barrage of birds. Lots and lots of infinitely spawning birds. Look, there's thugs, there's soldiers, and there's demons. And they are no pushover for sure. But these birds are truly the bane of this game. Ah! Sorry. Anyways, the other day I was training for my next New Game Plus video here, and I found a letter from Proton John, my good friend and former sensei, that was addressed to me, and I want to share it with you guys. This is totally a real letter written by Proton John, by the way. Gerard, we must prepare for a life or death duel. Take up the dragon sword of the Hayabusa family once more and become the ninja dragon you were born to become. And remember, Gerard, be always brave. I don't know why John left me a handwritten note covered in coffee stains somehow delivered to my house instead of just DMing me on Twitter or Discord, but now that I think about it, I don't even know how that letter got in my house or the building. John, are you here? John! Proton John, if he's here, I want to be so impressed. John! John!
And the battle continues. This could turn it all around. This bout will determine who is the strongest once and for all.
Before I ever completed Ninja Gaiden for the show, my experience with the game was similar to many kids of the early 90s. I rented Ninja Gaiden from Blockbuster, but I never could really beat it. I found it to be a pretty difficult challenge to overcome. In fact, it was easily one of the hardest games I'd played at the time, but once I took up the completionist mantle, I knew I'd have to return to Ninja Ryu Hayabusa's quest for revenge one day, eventually. And, just as the briefest asides, to clear things up for any potential but unlikely confusion, the original Ninja Gaiden for the NES
NES, which I will be recompleting today, also shared its name and perhaps some of its equally notorious difficulty with an arcade cabinet equivalent also developed by Tecmo. In both cases, however, despite the implications of both games having the word ninja in the title, neither game seems to have so much as heard of the word stealth. The arcade version was a classic beat 'em up that threw wave after wave of enemies at players, many of whom never made it past that first level. The NES version of Ninja Gaiden, first released in Japan in 1988 and then the US in 1989, is a side-scrolling action platformer, complete with power-ups and secondary weapons to collect, dangerous terrain to navigate through, and endlessly regenerating enemies to defeat or dodge on the way to each level's boss. Think Castlevania, maybe just as hard, sometimes even harder, and then add ninjas. For all of its notoriety though, Ninja Gaiden is surprisingly simple to complete once you get the hang of it. This isn't a secret passages and endless side quests kind of game. Completing it is the same as finishing the game. No post-game, no hidden bosses, no achievements. And even though I am re-completing the game on the Nintendo Switch's NES online service instead of an NES, the completion goals are still the same. However, what I didn't talk about in my initial completion of the game was how a friend really helped me see this game for what it was. So a little context here for when this episode came out, originally in October of 2014. My mom had passed away just about a year before this, and my head was an absolute mess. I was bereft, and I needed something short but satisfying to complete for the channel, which at the time was very rare. I usually have things planned out in advance, so when I got to this point in my life, I realized that I needed help. Proton John, my good friend, was visiting me and staying over at the time, and he recommended Ninja Gaiden. I vividly remembered the countless deaths I'd suffered at the hands of this game as a kid, and I really didn't need to have my ass handed to me by a game when I was feeling so low in my life, even though as someone at the time had been playing games for a living. But Proton John has and had been bending retro games to his will for many, many years, and even then, he was persistent, and eventually, I relented. We plopped down on the couch together with my Wii U, and in less than an hour, the game was done. I was shocked and thrilled. John coached me through all the 6 acts, sharing power recommendations, and even enemy patterns and exploits. By the end of our playthrough, John had taken a game that I didn't really care for, and he casted a whole new perspective on it. The thrill of just getting to the end of it alive was way more than enough reason for me to give it the rating of completed the first time around. And I honestly don't know if I would have felt that same joy of completing Ninja Gaiden had John not been in my corner backing me up every step of the way. So this time around, I wanted to share that part of my completion experience with you all. Proton John and I streamed this game together, and we were taking turns, usually after finishing an act or getting a game over screen, which is why we completed this game again on the Nintendo Switch online services. Did all of you know that the games on Nintendo Switch Online have co-op? You and your friend who is playing on a different Switch altogether can take turns playing a game just like you were hanging out on a couch. Why is no one talking about this? Nintendo, why do you not use this in your marketing tools? These are not secrets, these are selling points.
Hey guys, Gerard here, CEO of the spin-off of Frog in a Car, Crab in a Cat. We're not doing so good. As you know, I recently made the mistake of telling Alex Fasciani, the weird genie I captured and forced to work at the office, that he was now officially the head of Patreon. And how? But honestly, weird as it's been, it's really been working itself out. $5, you get roles on Discord, art, scripts, and a Donkey Kong remix every week. And that's called the completion bonus. But what Alex really wants me to remind you about is the one main event, our big monthly bonus. Yo quiero Taco Bell. Yep. As always, to be a part of it, just put your $5 down on Patreon and we'll do something nice just for you. Like last month, I did an exclusive AMA with Yacht Club Games about their new title after Shovel Knight, Mina the Hollower. It was cool. Everybody gets to see the video when it drops on the channel, but with the completion bonus, not only do you get to watch it early, but you also get to ask the questions that are in the video. And now it's time for May's big thing. Sometime in June, we're gonna be offering the first ever digital album of original completionist music and remixes, featuring tracks from some of the best music creators out there today. It's lit, it's gonna have dope album art, and next month, it's gonna be available to the public for $10 out the door. But if you're signed up for the completion bonus this month, which again only costs half of that, because it's always $5 a month, Not only do you get the album for free when it drops, but we will drip feed you album art and preview tracks all month long when we get ready for the public release. So yeah, which is more, $5 or $10? I think they probably already got that figured out. I know, I'm just making sure because I'm the president of Patreon. Oh, you're president now of Patreon. Right. Please sign up for this, get the album, watch the AMA, and get all the weekly stuff as a part of the completion bonus. Always just $5 a month at patreon.com/completionist. Sound good, Alex? Sounds great, Alex. Okay, that doesn't even make sense now. Did it ever? You know what? Great point. Yo quiero Taco Bell.
Ninja Gaiden's story is centered around Ryu Hayabusa, who is bent on unraveling and avenging the mystery around his father's death. Ryu's search leads him from Japan to America, and he soon finds himself tangled up in a CIA-level conspiracy plot and the machinations of a mysterious figure known as, oh man, I'm gonna ruin this, I'm so sorry, the Jacques? I'm just gonna say Jack from now on, who wants to awaken an ancient demon that will destroy the world. Ryu's goal remains the same throughout the entire game. Fight from one end of the screen to the other as quickly as possible to take out Jack's minions, and eventually face Jack himself, and move on to the next stage, all while trying not to fall prey to bottomless pits and unfair one-hit KOs. Now, it's also worth noting that this is one of the first games to feature cinematic cutscenes. Tecmo even coined a special term for them, Tecmo Theater. They're obviously a bit archaic in comparison to what we're able to experience today on modern systems, but it is far from a wash. These cutscenes are engaging, campy, offer a surprising amount of heart, and set the tone of the game in a really clean way. From there, we dropped right into the gameplay, and I gotta say, the action still holds up. Ninja Gaiden is just as challenging as I remember it being. Some of the enemy spawns were brutal, but we were able to power through the first few acts pretty smoothly. A couple of rough screens with some vicious cats and birds here and there, but nothing that felt insurmountable. Between each act, the plot moves along at a pretty good pace. We come into possession of a demon statue and learn that there's a lot more going on than a simple ninja vengeance plot. There was something really special about playing a game like Ninja Gaiden with friends. Obviously, having John alongside me for the playthrough is amazing. He was the one man in my ear guiding me when the going got tough. He was the Colonel to my Snake, the Doc Lewis to my Little Mac, the Bentley to my Sly Cooper. But beyond receiving guidance from a friend who knew this game like the back of his hand, it was just nice to have a friend to play with in general. Ninja Gaiden may have gotten its reputation as this demanding game to beat, but that doesn't mean you have to take it on alone. This is the perfect kind of game for Rochambeau taking turns couch co-op. Overall, recompleting this game only took us a little over 2 hours, and yes, that was longer than the original 45 minutes playthrough we experienced, but hey, we're indulging in those couch co-op digital streaming vibes. Passing the virtual controller back and forth was such a delight, and truthfully, this is the kind of co-op experience I wish everyone could have had during the pandemic. We were ranting and raving about the game's highs and lows. We were ragging on each other for making silly mistakes. Okay, so that was mostly John ragging on me for making silly mistakes, but guys, he is just that good at the game. But most importantly, we were cheering each other on through every stage. And look, the Switch's virtual library literally has a built-in cheer function, which is stupidly funny. This literally made us laugh for like 5 minutes. Once again, why are you not talking about this, Nintendo? Use this as a fun marketing tool. All of you know, though, that this game is all about adversity, baby. Even with John's tutelage, I felt the last few acts decided to turn up that heat. Enemy spawns became a bit more treacherous, and the windows for us to strike back became a bit smaller. Knowing when to play it safe versus when to just tank damage and muscle through was one of the most important choices I've ever had to make in the game, especially in the later levels. I wanted to fight every incessant bird that flew my way, but sometimes it just made sense to take the hit rather than stubbornly trying to fight them and end up falling into a pit. If the earlier stages had beat 'em up energy, these last few stages are more like a bullet hell. Instead of street thugs, we're dealing with jetpack ninjas. But those birds are just as evil as they were in stage 1. Oh great, now you're spawning below me? You are a bird, you fly. Why are you coming from underneath the ground? On top of the stages becoming more hazardous, checkpoint placements just get a little more frustrating. They're located at the start of each stage, which makes sense on paper, but towards the end of the game, their spacing becomes a lot less forgiving. Stages have multiple grueling screens that are as long as previous acts. sharp escalation in difficulty leaves the level progression feeling unnatural, at least by modern game sensibilities. The good news is you are not helpless against the mounting challenges you'll face. Power-ups and secondary weapons are a ninja's best friend, in fact. The right item can sometimes turn an otherwise grueling boss fight into an immediate one-hit victory. Act 4's boss, for example, can be insta-killed with the jump and slash before he even finishes loading in the screen. Ranged weapons like throwing stars, meanwhile, provide vital support throughout the game, allowing you to attack from afar to avoid being boxed in by enemies or taken down by a powerful boss's melee attacks. Figuring out which items to grab and which to leave behind is essential to success. You need to make quick, smart choices to get from one boss to the next as efficiently as possible. Despite 5 total sub-weapons to choose from, including throwing stars, windmill stars, flames, the fire wheel, and the jump and slash, you can only carry one at a time. So the question will always come down to, which one do you need the most at any given moment? Whether you love or hate the difficulty here, there's no denying Ninja Gaiden has style. It's aged just about as well as any NES game can. Yeah, the writing is a little goofy and the character work could use some work. The cutscenes themselves still have that retro charm to them, and the controls on the Switch can be mastered in time with practice and patience. One thing I really loved about this game both times around was the soundtrack composed by Keiji Yamagishi. Every single track is an absolute banger, and every single level has a different theme driving you to just continue your hack and slash rampage. It's a techno lover's dream come true, and I couldn't help but bop my head and hum along while fighting my way through horde after horde of enemy ninjas, soldiers, boxers, guards, all those goddamn birds, and cheetahs? Hockey mask wearing serial killers. You know what? Yeah, why the f not? You do you, Ninja Gaiden. You do you. And do you, Ninja Gaiden does. At the end of it all, Ninja Gaiden throws its final devious ninja star with a 2-phase boss fight, with Ryu first facing off against Jack and then Jashin, the ultimate evil demon that awakens. And honestly, the first phase battle against Jack is probably the harder of the two, only because you have to survive a full stage before the boss fight, whereas we get a full heal going into the showdown with Jashin. The final battle against Jashin has no set attack patterns, and you could make an argument that the randomness makes it more tedious to learn. But I felt surviving the stages and then going straight into the fight with Jack was much more difficult. Beyond even seeing the credits roll and knowing Ninja Gaiden was once again complete, I think my favorite part of the experience once again was playing this game with a friend. Back in the day, John cheered me on like I was Akira and he was Sensei Koga. You know, from that one 80s ninja flick, Pray for Death. This time around though, we couldn't share a couch, but we did share a controller to swap with the Nintendo Switch Online that allowed us to mimic the feeling of passing the controller back and forth, the way that I used to play games with friends when I was a kid. And let me tell you, it is so much more fun to press start to continue for the 10th or even the 100th time when you've got someone there with you encouraging you to keep going. It's something I hope more people get to try out, as it added a lot to the experience for me and really highlighted how much heart this game has at its core. Completing Ninja Gaiden is tough, but pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, the word is get good and then get to the end. That's all, folks. The story is linear and there is only one ending to work your way up to. But once you're done with that, the game is complete. And although power-ups and sub-weapons can feel a bit like collectibles, trying to get every single one isn't going to do you any favors. And you're not going to win any kind of gold throwing stars for doing so. Tecmo absolutely nailed their first entry in the Ninja Gaiden series. They set a standard for brutal platformers that inspired awesome games like Cyber Shadow and The Messenger. And while I feel those games are way more complex and demanding to complete, that doesn't take away the merit from the trials, tribulations, and fun that Ninja Gaiden is. When I recompleted Ninja Gaiden, there were 6 acts cleared, 4 continues, and 6 deaths, 2 hours of gameplay, 967 birds murdered, and 1 virtual couch to complete this game with great company like Proton John.
A huge thank you to the friend of the show, Proton John, for not only coming through and playing this with me and putting me on the right path of the New Game Plus journey, but for showing me how good this game was in the first place. If you're looking for an old school gaming challenge, you cannot go wrong with Ninja Gaiden, especially if you have a friend to play with through the Switch's NES online systems or in person on a couch with a friend. So hit up a friend and pass the controller around. like it's a Rochambeau of lives and chaos. And speaking of multiple passes, this script was actually written in multiple passes by two of our brand new writers here on the show, Kim and Isaac. So if you'd like to see their individual scripts before we smash them together to make this original episode, you can head over to patreon.com/thecompletionist. Getting scripts is one of the many perks for the completion bonus tier, so check it out. So with all that said, and no real delineation between finishing and completing it, I still give this game its original completionist rating of complete it.
Complete it!